This is Dads Watching Sports. It's the show by dads who watch sports, for dads who watch sports, or just dads in general. Here are the dads with a plan for every hashtag dad life and sports fan, Kyle Castles and Michael Draper.
Welcome all to another show for the dads out there. This is Dads Watching Sports. Kyle Castles, Michael Draper. It is Sunday, October 10th in the year of 2021, and big time college football talk to get to from yesterday. Is a lot of big things happened across the college football landscape, and we'll get to that in just a few short minutes. But Kyle, how are you doing, sir?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to get on this podcast with you and talk about the 6-0 Kentucky Wildcats, all the craziness that's happened over the past couple of weeks in college football. We are going to get back into the best tailgate food bracket, which I'm very excited about. And so if you are streaming the show live, we are going to get your input for that portion of the bracket because we will likely end in a tie in some of those. And so if you're streaming, we need you to stick around so you can give your vote. So later on the show, we're going to go through that. Kyle, we are going to get down to the final four of our best tailgate food bracket. I'm really excited. We've got some great matchups. I'm excited.
I am too. Anytime I talk about food, I'm happy.
Me and you both. Well, let's get into it. It's like I said, there's a lot going on in college football, and a lot happened yesterday. It was a wild day. The biggest news, of course, is number one Alabama, who was just on a tear and had a winning streak against non-conference foes of it was like almost 100 games.
So they had a 100-game win streak against unranked opponents.
Mm-hmm.
A 19-game win streak overall. Nick Saban was 24-0 against former assistants. Crazy because we had that conversation just last week.
We did,
and turns out I think we were both wrong. Maybe.
And Gig'em got them. So Texas A&M, they got out to the early lead. They floundered that, and Bama, kind of in true Bama fashion, came back, took a 7-point lead with just a couple minutes left. And then kudos to, Texas A&M and their players and their staff. They didn't hesitate. They didn't fold under pressure, drove right down the field, scored, got the 2-point conversion, tied the ball game up, and then got a stop and went down to kick the game-winning field goal. Their quarterback, I forget the kid's name. It was on he got rolled up really good in the drive before and came back. And delivered a game-winning drive to get his guys down there. So TJ says, "Hello, boys." TJ, congratulations, sir, on your Aggies. We shot you a message last night saying shout out to TJ for his Aggies beating the number one Tide. So congratulations, TJ. And it was a very exciting night in your household with Alabama. But number one goes down, Kyle. Pretty exciting stuff. I feel like we mentioned this already, but a couple of weeks ago we talked about there's no parity in college football.
I know, right?
And then you look at the top 10 or 15, and it's like, yes, finally, here we are.
Yeah, I guess all we had to do is just get on the internet and talk about how there was no parity, to get some parity, to get some upsets, to get out of what had become a very stagnant playoff. And let's be honest, we could end up with 3 of those 4 back in it. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and start talking about Ohio State, but you're still looking at Oklahoma, who's still undefeated despite the scare that Texas gave them. You got Alabama with 1 loss, but let's just be really honest. That 1-loss Alabama team, if they just finish the season doing what they're supposed to do and get to that SEC title game and beat Georgia or Kentucky.
Dang right. You're dang right, or Kentucky.
They go and they win the SEC title. They're right back in it as a 2 or a 3 seed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have all of these upsets. I heard a stat last night at the end of that Alabama A&M game. This Alabama was the 40th ranked team to lose a game this year, which is a fairly significant number. We've seen a lot of ranked teams get beat. Now, a lot of them are getting beat by other ranked teams and whatever, but 40 ranked teams getting beat. But we're only halfway through the season. And that's the thing people are forgetting. We're halfway through the season. And what we've learned, especially in a year like this, you can lose a game and still get to where you want to get to. So if I'm Alabama, I'm not panicking yet. If you notice, they are number 5 in both the coaches and the AP poll. They're just waiting on somebody to lose. Yeah. And eventually somebody above them will lose.
Yeah. Well, and if you're Alabama, kind of like you mentioned, I mean, you still control your own destiny because you run the table. You're going to be in the SEC championship game. You win that, you're right back in it, and so Absolutely. It doesn't matter. I think what it does put out there though is like Alabama, they have to win the SEC championship. I think there's no way that they can. They've
be a 2-loss team.
Can't be a 2-loss team. Can't. They've snuck in before with not even going to the SEC championship. And so I think for Alabama, they still control their own destiny, but they can't. They got to be perfect from here on out. They can't have any mistakes. Where had they run the table, play Georgia or Kentucky and lost, they probably still would have gotten in. But now it's definitely not going to happen. So TJ says 364 days of bragging, and I'll enjoy every day of it. No doubt about that, TJ. I know you will, man. Again, congratulations. So Kyle, with that being said. From Alabama's standpoint, do they rally? Do they run the table, knock off whoever represents the East in the SEC championship game, and return to the playoffs to defend their title?
Well, I'm a Mississippi State fan. Everybody knows that. But if you look at Alabama's next 4 games, Mississippi State, Tennessee, LSU, New Mexico State, 3 of which are in Tuscaloosa. The only one that's not is in Starkville this coming Saturday. They should win fairly handedly all 4 of those games. I mean, Mississippi State, before the bye week yesterday, was playing decent enough football.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about good enough football to beat Alabama.
They beat Texas A&M. Who beat Alabama?
That is very true. But Texas A&M did not play against Mississippi State the way they played last night.
Very true.
So I think that's part of it. I don't see Mississippi State being able to put up much of a fight. On top of those kids are going to have an angry Nick Saban for a whole week, getting them ready and getting them refocused. It's a bad time to be a Bulldog. Tennessee is probably the toughest game in the next 4 for Alabama. I'll be honest. I think Heupel's doing the right stuff on offense and Tennessee scoring points. And that you've got to score points to beat Alabama. Very few people are going to be able to just hold that Alabama offense to 10, 17 points or whatever.
Right.
So we'll see. LSU, I think they're dead in the water. I think Coach O has lost that locker room, and if he is still the coach on November 6th, and I don't think he will be, it's not going to matter. Then New Mexico State is New Mexico State. Their last 2 are Arkansas and at Auburn. Arkansas is a good football team, and I think they're going to win quite a few more games the rest of the way. And then you never know. Iron Bowl, it's a rivalry game, and that can always go crazy. But they'll be favored the rest of the way. Arkansas is probably their toughest game left, but Arkansas has already proven that they're beatable. I mean, Georgia put 37 on them and held them to nothing. Ole Miss beat them yesterday. So, I mean, looking at it, if Alabama wins out and they go to the SEC title game against either an unbeaten Kentucky or an unbeaten Georgia, you said it. They control their own destiny. Just, Al Davis said it, right? Just win, baby.
Just win. Just win. Yeah, I think they'll get to Atlanta. I don't think they'll beat who's probably going to be there. So I don't think they're going to make it back to the playoff. But I think they'll run the table, like you said, the rest of the way. They don't really have a whole lot stacked up against them. But I just, especially if it's an undefeated Georgia sitting there who's just chomping at the bit, just based off of history with Alabama, I could see Georgia just being able to pull that one off. Yeah. Really, another big game of the day, Kyle, was we had number 3 versus number 4 matchup, Iowa and Penn State. In Iowa, Penn State got an early quarterback injury. Iowa rallies. The place is just going bananas. They're waving to the kids in the hospital. Everybody's jumping around. It's exciting. They get an interception at the end of the game to kind of seal it, and the Hawkeyes move on. we've talked about this already in the past couple of weeks. We both agree Iowa's legit. Do they run the table, including a Big Ten championship game, and make the playoff as the number 2 team and potentially number 1 if something happens to Georgia going into the playoff?
They definitely run the table to the Big Ten title game, right? I mean, they got Purdue this coming Saturday, then at Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's not a good football team.
Yeah.
At Northwestern, home against Minnesota, home versus Illinois, and then at Nebraska.
Yeah.
You tell me which team is going to beat that Iowa team out of that list, because I don't find one, right? Then it comes down to who's coming out of the Big Ten East or Legends or whatever they're calling it now, right?
Right.
I don't know. What was it? Legends and
something.
Yeah, who cares? Crazy Big Ten. But let's be honest. Like, who's going to come out of it? I think you got to wait to see who wins that. You know, it's Michigan, it's Ohio State, it's Penn State. One of those three, depending on how those 3 teams end up. And as much as I really wanted to write Ohio State off a few weeks ago after they got beat by Oregon, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Not the way they're playing right now. Unless Harbaugh can find some magic and find a way to beat Ohio State, I don't think Penn State can do it. Especially not without Clifford. Forget his first name. Especially not without that quarterback, and I don't know when he's due back. Yeah, it's going to be Iowa, but I think they're going to have to slay the Ryan Day Ohio State Dragon, and we'll see. That's all I can say is we'll see.
Yeah, well, they're definitely playing pretty well. I mean, you know, I agree. Ohio State has looked good the past couple of weeks, but man, Iowa's they're so tough. Their defense is solid. They got a good ground game. They got a quarterback who can make some plays when he needs to, and they're just solid all the way around. And so I'm all on board on the Hawkeyes running the table and maybe even being number 1 if there's an upset of the Bulldogs. Another big game over this past weekend, OU and Texas was just wild. I mean, it started from the opening kick. Texas runs the kickback. They block a punt, get up 14-0. Then they got up by almost 3 touchdowns. And then it's just almost like it's a yearly thing. OU gets way behind in that game, and then they just turn it on. This time they went to the backup quarterback, and they rally to actually beat Texas pretty handily towards the end. But just an unbelievable effort by Oklahoma to come back. But in that, they brought in true freshman quarterback. They sit down Spencer Rattler, who was, beginning of the season, everybody thought he was kind of the Heisman front runner. And now there's what I would imagine just a bona fide quarterback controversy in Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley has the freshman not available to the media after the game. They've got some games coming up that they're still going to need some really good play out of that position. So what do you make of the quarterback controversy in OU, and are they able to kind of ride that out and finish up the season?
First off, did you see the tweet that Holly Rowe put out after the game?
I did.
So I thought that was interesting. Look, it's interesting the way that Lincoln Riley is doing this. You got a true freshman that came in and brought your team back in the Red River Showdown or shootout or whatever we're calling it. Probably can't say shootout anymore, right? That's probably why we change it to showdown. I don't know. I think what he's doing is trying to protect Spencer Rattler because I think there's a chance he's planning on going back to him.
Yeah.
I don't really get it. I think he's shown enough that the offense is kind of stagnant with him in there. But I'm not at practice. I'm not watching him run through 7-on-7 or team or any whatever drill they're running, like whatever. But looking at the Big 12, you got Oklahoma State that's still undefeated and 12th in the nation. Baylor is 5-1 and unranked, which I don't really get that, but whatever. But outside of those teams, like who else does Oklahoma have left to play, even in the Big 12 that matters? TCU, Kansas, definitely not. Texas Tech, Then there's Baylor. Iowa State, which is not what Iowa State was last year.
Right. Go ahead.
And then at Oklahoma State. Like, you got 2 games, both of which they should be favored, both of which they, quite frankly, should win. Again, this is one of those, like, I don't see a loss waiting on them. I see a loss possibly waiting on Georgia. I see a loss.
Right. It's this weekend.
I see a loss waiting on Iowa. I think it could be Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State again, whoever is playing in that Big Ten title game against them. Mm-hmm. I don't see another loss. Maybe Oklahoma State, right? Like, Bedlam is Bedlam. It's another rivalry game.
And if you look at Oklahoma State's schedule, I mean, there's really not a whole lot to write about there. They do have to go to Austin this weekend, but I mean, we've really kind of seen Texas. They're a good team. They're not really probably a top 25 team, even though I think they hung around as number 25.
They're still 25, yeah.
Then they do have to go to Iowa State after that, but then they've got Kansas, West Virginia, who's
not
decent. TCU, Texas Tech. So, I mean, we could have undefeated Oklahoma at undefeated Oklahoma State to finish the season, which would be Bedlam and would be awesome. But I agree with you. I mean, I think it's got to be that game that could potentially trip up the Sooners for sure.
And quite frankly, for the Big 12's sake, they want that. They want to see Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, undefeated. National spotlight. Winner gets to go, because there is no Big 12 title game. Winner gets to go to the playoff, and we all know it. You get there. Hey, it's great. It looks good for the Big 12. And they're going to need it, trying to recruit other teams to come in, take Oklahoma and Texas a spot. But
that would be pretty cool, though, if the year that Oklahoma announces they're going to the SEC, that their rival knocks them off at the end of the season to keep them out of the playoff, out of for the title of Big 12 conference champion. That would be that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be fantastic.
I would appreciate that for sure. Well, one last game, Kyle, we got to talk about obviously was Kentucky knocking off LSU, and we talked about this before the show. LSU is not a good football team. You reiterated it earlier. They're not a good football team, but for Kentucky, I mean, anytime you have LSU coming in, I think it'd be the same way that you'd feel like for Mississippi State. I mean, LSU is just one of those teams it's just one of those names that gets you amped, and you feel like, especially at somebody at what Kentucky has had in the future or in the past, like it's still a big game. And so there's a sellout, a blackout with the whole thing. And I mean, Kentucky played probably their best game of the season, most complete game, and just crushed LSU by 3 touchdowns to remain perfect. They've got Georgia this weekend. Look, I'm a homer, but I'm not that big of a homer. I recognize, I think Georgia's a 22-point favorite, which is just wild to me. But that might not be off, just because how good they are. We kind of talked a little bit about this before the show, but I think Kentucky will keep it close. I mean, I think Kentucky's defense is good enough to keep them in that ball game. Their defense makes so many big plays. Their defensive line gets a really good pressure. They got some good linebackers, and their secondary is really solid. So I think they'll make enough plays to keep them in the game. I just don't know if their offense is going to be able to move the ball the way that they need to be able to beat Georgia. I mean, Kentucky's a ball control offense. They love to run the football. Will Levis can make some plays when he's not rattled. But I just don't think they're ready to get over that hump this year, unfortunately, or that they'll ever be. But I think they'll keep it close. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you were wrong to start with. Kentucky's a 22.5-point dog to Georgia.
Still too much.
Yeah, give me Kentucky plus 22.5, because Kentucky doesn't win by putting up a ton of points. Kentucky wins by playing good, strong defense, running the football, controlling the clock, which is interesting. You know what Georgia is doing this year? Running the football, controlling the clock, and playing strong, solid defense.
Yeah.
So you got 2 teams that basically are saying they're going to win doing the same thing. So it'll be a fun game. There's no way Georgia wins by 22.5 points. Well, obviously they're 22.5, right? But you know what I mean. They're not going to win by.
That would be impressive.
they're not going to win by 23 points. There's just I don't know there's going to be enough points scored between the two to get to that point. So Kentucky's going to hang around and they're going to look strong. And quite frankly, I think they're going to have a shot to win it at the end. But I think they're going to have to rely on, and I hate to say it because I like the kid, the Levis kid at quarterback. They're going to have to rely on his arm. And just as you said, as long as he's not rattled, he's pretty good. Mm-hmm. That Georgia defense just rattles people. That's what they do.
Yep.
So I don't see Kentucky winning it. Wouldn't surprise me if Georgia seals it on a late interception or something.
Yeah.
It'll be a great game. I can tell you that much. And if I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm going to love watching it because I will be able to say, hey, look, we hung in there with the best team in the nation, and we're this close.
Yeah. Yeah, the atmosphere is going to be awesome. I mean, game day's there, SEC Nation or whatever their pregame show is there. I mean, like it's
they're both going to go to the same game.
They're both in Athens, which is pretty wild. I think it's only happened 3 other times. But yeah, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. I mean, it's a 2:30 kickoff, 3:30 local time. So that does hopefully for Kentucky maybe make the crowd maybe a little less wild than they would be if it was a 6 or 7 o'clock kickoff. Yeah. But going to be really awesome. But Kyle, I saw this stat and wanted to bring this up because this is pretty remarkable. So Mark Stoops, we talked about Kentucky's schedule earlier on before the show about what they had coming up, and they've got a really good shot, even if they lose this game at Georgia, to really run the table with what they've got left. So Mark Stoops is 5 wins short of passing Bear Bryant, his all-time wins record at Kentucky, which is just ridiculous to think about. When they hired Stoops, I remember thinking like, okay, he'll this is a guy that will get him back to kind of mediocrity, and we'll be able to at least kind of they'll be better than winning 2 games, which is what happened before he got there. But I don't know that I would have ever thought in a million years that he'd be able to get this team to where they had 10 wins a couple of years ago. They've been to 5 or 6 straight bowl games, and now on the cusp of maybe a 10 or 11 win season, if not more than that. Going to eventually pass Bear Bryant as the winningest coach in Kentucky football. Like, just never would have thought all those things. So you think about like his legacy at a place like Kentucky, and you kind of alluded to this before the show. Like, you get 10 or 11 wins, go to a major, maybe New Year's Day Bowl, Power 6 Bowl. Big programs may come a calling. So you think Kentucky can hold on to Stoops? Depending on how they finish out this season.
So, looking at Kentucky's schedule, after Georgia, they're in Starkville to play Mississippi State. They have Tennessee at home. They're in Nashville to play Vanderbilt. Okay. New Mexico State, and then at Louisville. There's 3 games that are possible losses. I mean, and out of the 5, that's I understand that's a lot. But like Mississippi State, as a State fan, I look up and go, it depends. Are they going to play this air raid like they, man it up and whatever? Because what I've seen is when teams tend to do that, we're able to beat them over the top. If you drop 8 and you force us to be patient, we're not able to do that. So depending on how Stoops decides he wants to play the air raid, I think Kentucky wins if they drop 8. And quite frankly, they may win even if they try to go man, because that defense is just so good. Tennessee would worry me a little bit if I'm a Kentucky fan, just because look at what they've been able to do as far as scoring points this year. Again, Kentucky's got probably a top 5 defense in the nation. As far as talent goes, I don't know that I see Tennessee winning. I think Kentucky's going to be favored in all these games moving forward.
Yeah.
But then Vanderbilt and New Mexico State, those are nothing. And then Louisville, I don't see it unless that quarterback there at Louisville can get loose a lot. But against that Kentucky defense, I don't see it. So, there's a very, very good chance that even if Kentucky loses to Georgia, they're an 11-1 team. They're in the Sugar Bowl, right? You're dancing in the French Quarter for New Year's. I mean, it could be done. If that happens, The only way he stays is if he looks up and goes, "There's a lot of talent left here that I can win a lot more games with."
Yeah.
But if he looks up and goes, "We're this good because I have so many super seniors and whatever," I don't really see him staying. The problem is I don't see where he's going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where is the job that could open up that is a better spot than what Kentucky is right now?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that because obviously none of us know what's going to happen going forward. You and I kind of spoke a little bit about this before the show. He's I don't think he's a USC type of guy, so I don't think that job does not intimidate me at all if I'm a Kentucky fan.
I think for an offensive guy, and Stoops is a defensive guy. So
yeah, I think the jobs that would potentially concern me would be Iowa because he's a grad there, he's an alumni. That job's not going to open up. Florida State, I don't think that job's going to open up either. Miami, maybe, but I don't know that job's going to open up this year. And then maybe Michigan. And Michigan obviously is undefeated. They're in the top 10. Things have gone right for Harbaugh so far. If he were to leave or get fired, that might be a job. You mentioned before the show, we were kind of talking a little bit about this, and you mentioned Penn State. If Franklin goes to USC, and back, I guess it was 3 years ago, when Kentucky played Penn State in the Citrus Bowl, there was James Franklin was doing his traditional barking before the game and just kind of talking and all this stuff. And so at the end of the game, after Kentucky had won, Stoops is in midfield, like accepting the trophy, and says, "Now we'll show you who the real blue and white is." So I think it'd be really kind of hard for him to go back, call out basically their whole program, say Kentucky's the real blue and white, and then to go end up coaching them a couple of years later. So I'm going to say he does not go to Penn State, although I could see why that would be tempting. So,
but I will say this: is Penn State, and forgive me, those Big Ten homers, is Penn State a step up from Kentucky at this point?
I still think it is. I mean, I would say it's probably on maybe a little bit easier to win there just because of, yes, you have Ohio State every single year, but I think that, and the Big Ten has proven this year to be better than the SEC, but I think year in and year out, I think it's probably easier to win there, probably easier to recruit there based off of tradition. I think it's probably still a better job. But I do think that it's one that if that job came open and they came calling, I think Stoops would have to think long and hard about it. Because at this point, wins 11 games and they go to the Sugar Bowl, win or lose that. I mean, he can write his offer of what he wants, and they won't let him leave Lexington if he's willing to accept that offer. So speaking of somebody being on the way out, you kind of mentioned it already. You think this, LSU loses to Kentucky, they've lost several games here in a row. It doesn't look much better for them. They got a tough schedule going the rest of the way. Does Orgeron last the season?
I don't think so. I don't think there's it. I'm shocked he's still employed right now.
See, I just don't get this, man. Like, yes, I think they are not a good football team, but he won a national championship, and you can say it was coordinators and they had the talent or whatever, but he's the person that put those people in their places.
You're right.
And he won a national championship 2 years ago. And if you take away the COVID year, it's really one true year. 2 years ago, wins a national championship. Some people said was the greatest team of all time in terms of just the talent and the way they were able to perform. I just can't fathom a program firing someone after 2 years after winning a national championship. That just blows my mind.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. After winning that national title, what's he done? And I get it. Last year was COVID, but you let Mississippi State and the Pirate come in and beat the brakes off of you, and your DBU play in the air raid. Now, he got to win this year against Mississippi State. Great. But this is, everything is what have you done for me lately kind of thinking. And LSU's not going to take losing to Kentucky. No offense.
No.
They're just not. He's won one national title, and everybody looks up and says, that's not his, that's Brady's, that's Burrow's, that's everyone around him. I get that he put them in place, but he also put this group in place, and they are not producing. So you have to start looking up, does he know what he's doing, or did he get lucky? And I don't know the answer to that. I know that my opinion is, and has been since he was head coach at Ole Miss, he's not head coach material.
Yeah.
I think he's a heck of a defensive line coach. I think he's a heck of a defensive coordinator. I think he is perfect in that role. And I think wherever he goes next, he'll be a D coordinator and he will thrive. There's a reason he keeps getting these head coaching jobs, because he's really good at coordinating a defense, at putting things together to stop these offenses. I just don't know that he's a head coach. But, he's a character, so he's always fun.
He is quite the character. I think he'll ride out the season. I think they'll give him one more year to turn it around. But we'll see what happens. I mean, there's people on the bayou. They do not have much patience when it comes, and it doesn't help that everybody else. Ole Miss is looking really good. Who's one of their biggest rivals? Alabama, obviously, even though they lost this weekend, is rolling. And again, their schedule. I'd have to pull up and see who they've got left, but it is not favorable for LSU. So if you look at their schedule, they've got Florida this weekend, and at Ole Miss, at Alabama, Arkansas, then Louisiana Monroe, and then Texas A&M. I mean, they will not be favored. The only game they'll be favored in is against Louisiana Monroe. So of their next 5 games, they will be favored in 1, which is not looking good for a team that's already 3-3 going down the stretch. So unless they can pull something out, it's looking very, very slim for Coach O. So
I mean, let's be honest. You're looking at worst an 8-loss season.
Yeah.
You go 4-8 LSU, you don't expect to come back. And just you watch the game, and to me, that's more telling than even the schedule, than even the record, than even what he did 2 years ago. If you watch that Kentucky game last night, those LSU players did not play hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he's lost the locker room, and to me, that's more telling than anything else.
Oh, for sure. Yep. That is once that happens, it's hard to come back from that. There's no doubt about that. Nick Hathcott jumps in and said he is a great recruiter. He is a great recruiter. Yeah. I mean, they traditionally have one of the best recruiting classes in the country. But
I'll also say LSU kind of recruits itself. I mean, if you're a kid in Louisiana growing up, like the purple and gold's what you want to put on. And there are so many athletes coming out of Louisiana.
Yeah.
Now, if he really wanted to make sure he got the win, there's a certain quarterback that's a junior this year in high school that you get that kid to commit. They may keep you for 2 more years just to get him to the school.
That's right. No doubt about that. Although I don't know, is LSU on?
I don't think LSU
the Manning kids.
No, and I think that's another reason to go out and find someone that you think this might get Arch Manning to stay in state.
Sure, yeah.
Because if he doesn't like Ed Orgeron for whatever reason, right?
Right.
Because he likes Dabo better, or he likes Nick better, or he likes Kirby Smart better, or wherever he's leaning right now. And I haven't heard.
I heard it was Lexington, but I don't know.
I doubt that. Right. Or if he likes Lane Kiffin better in Oxford, wherever he thinks he might go, I don't see a point in keeping someone that can't go recruit that kid.
Yeah.
Like, go get you somebody that can go out and get Arch Manning to stay in state. Because I feel like that right there would be a huge selling point. Because he's the next, can't miss. You got Quinn Ewers that's now at Ohio State. But Arch Manning's that next can't-miss kid. And quite frankly, I think he's more can't-miss than most, because when you come from that family, you just tend to just be better than everyone else.
No doubt. Hey, really quickly, I didn't have this as one of our topics here, but I'm just curious. So, one thing that we haven't talked about yet, and I don't even know remotely where to go with this, but, at the end of the season, somebody's going to win the Heisman Trophy. You think about, Bryce Young, I know leading was maybe one of the front runners heading into this weekend. They stumble. Not that takes him out of consideration, but that definitely knocks him back a bit. Matt Corral at Ole Miss is up there. Ritter at Cincinnati. C.J. Stroud has really jumped up over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, Spencer Rattler was way up there at the beginning of the season, but you think about this kind of across the board. Who on earth is the front runner right now?
I mean,
is it Matt Corral?
I think last I heard, Bryce Young was still like Vegas's favorite to win the Heisman.
Okay.
I think Matt Corral, I think Ole Miss is another one of those teams. Make sure I'm literally pulling up their schedule and all. They're a one-loss team. They lost by 21 to Alabama. They're going to Tennessee next week. LSU, Auburn, Liberty, A&M, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. I mean, Ole Miss should be favored in every game moving forward, save for maybe the A&M game, depending on what A&M does, from here on out. Should be favored. Should win all of those games. Okay, so let's pretend Ole Miss is a one-loss team, right? In the East, you got Georgia, Kentucky, and in the West, you got Alabama, Ole Miss. And Ole Miss misses the SEC title by one game because they lost to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're looking at that team. Matt Corral definitely should. If they do that, he's definitely going to have to be a Heisman Trophy favorite. He's going to be in New York, sitting there, and we're going to spend 20 minutes that night talking about him to fill that hour.
Yeah.
And I think he deserves it. I think he's a heck of a quarterback. I think he's going to make some money on Sunday.
He is. There's no doubt about it. So Nick says, so disappointed that the Manning brothers aren't going to call that game. Talking about Tennessee and Ole Miss. Oh, my God. Yeah, like that would have been fantastic. We're actually going to pick the over-under on that. That's going to be one of our picks here later on.
I'm taking the over. So. Whatever. I don't even care what the number is. Give me the over.
I know, right? Well, Kyle, let's go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to shift gears just for a few minutes, and then we'll get into some picks in our tailgate food bracket. We'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports.
Big news in the Dad's Watching Sports podcasting world. You've heard us mention it on the show already. We are now part of the Off the Ball Podcast Network. We're super excited to be joining the team of great shows, hopefully adding a little dad flavor to the mix. You can check out Off the Ball Podcast and Off the Ball Network on all your social media sites. Just search Off the Ball Network. And while you're there, give them a like and a follow. You won't regret it.
And we're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. It's another week of we're new to the Off the Ball Network, running 10 months in a row here. Very excited to continue to be a part of that. Cal, so I got a couple of topics I wanted to go over with you during this segment. First, before we kind of get into our, I don't know where I was going with that. So first,
I don't either.
I don't know.
Before we get into the best tailgate,
before we get into the second topic that I was going to bring up, let me bring up the first topic. We kind of sporadically bought this book. I don't know. It's probably about a year ago, and we decided we were going to kind of start going back through it and reading through it. It's called Bounce Back Parenting, and it is a field guide for creating connection, not perfection, in your parenting. And I've been kind of looking through it the past couple of days, and there was a question in this book that really I wanted to explore with you here, Kyle, because I thought it was a good question. And the question is, what did you imagine parenting was going to be like before you became a parent? And then how is that compared to your how is that reality, or how is your reality compared to those expectations that you had back in the day?
I don't know. That's a deep question. I wasn't ready.
That is a deep question. Well, I tell you what. Why don't you think on that? And I'll go first. As I think about kind of what I was, thinking it would be like, I think this goes hand in hand with the show. And this is part of the reason, that I wanted to start this. I envisioned like these epic moments of watching Kentucky sports with my kid. Like that was because I think it's different from a mom and a dad, because like, for guys, at least most of us, we don't grow up wanting to be a dad. Like, that's not like, that's not really the biggest thing that we're trying to do when we grow up. Like, oh, I want to do this, but I just want to be a dad. I want to have kids. Like, that's not something that I feel like is ingrained in us, like it is women to be a mom. And so I don't know that I sat back and thought too much about this over the course of my life, but I definitely remember thinking like, I loved watching college football and college basketball with my grandparents and my parents, and just thinking like, I can't wait to have that relationship with my kids where I get to pass along, my team, and we get to have these epic Saturdays of watching the game or going to the game and doing all this stuff. And so I think that was definitely a thing. And I don't know that I ever really talked or thought about like the difficulties that come with it, of being a parent, and the challenges and the stress and these sleepless nights and the just all overall just headaches that kind of come along with it. And I think that's when I'm comparing my reality to my expectations. While I wouldn't trade my kids for anything, having that, I just don't think I anticipated the stress that comes along with being a parent, whether that be from things that are in our control or out of our control, or really just anything that kind of goes along with it.
Yeah. So I remember everybody telling me, obviously I don't remember being 2, but I remember everybody telling me that when I was very young, I loved. Do you need me to explain that one?
I don't really know what so Kelly Myers posts something on here that looks like a
T-Rex.
Okay, I couldn't quite see what that was. Okay, a T-Rex.
I used to coach with Kelly Myers, and Kelly Myers, I don't know, Kelly's probably about 6'5". He's got these long arms. I don't have long arms. I have short, stubby arms. So there you
go.
Actually, I measured my arms against a player of ours that we were coaching, and the kid was probably 6 foot or 5'11" or something, and he had longer arms than I did.
There you go.
So they called me. They like to call me T-Rex, and so thank you, Kelly. Thank you for that. But anyways, I remember being told how much I was drawn to football, how much I loved football. And I just kind of assumed that my kids would take that on. Like, and it wasn't just football. Like, football's where it started, but it was just sports, right? Like, I would watch sports, I would play sports, I was good at them. And really, I was good kind of naturally. Like, everything just kind of came natural to me. I can't promise that I was a really hard worker at anything. It all came natural. My kids are not that. Athletics do not come natural to them at all. Jack a little more than Wrigley, and that's okay. I'm not asking them to be athletes. I just want them to be happy. You know what I mean? And I'm not pushing anything, but it's never what you expect. I expected, when it was Wrigley, I expected him to be my little buddy, to sit with me on Saturdays and watch ball games, on Sundays and watch ball games. He has no desire to watch games. The only one that will sit down and watch a game is Jack, and that's when he can sit with his mama and watch Dodger baseball. Like, that's it.
Yep.
They don't want to sit and watch any football. They don't want to, Wrigley says he's a Cubs fan. I can't get him to sit down and watch a Cubs game.
Yeah.
It's weird, but it is. They would rather play Pokemon. They would rather, build stuff, which that was never me. Like, I'm not a creative type person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I love that about my kids. I love how creative they are, and they're, Wrigley loves art and building, and I really see that kid becoming, an architect, an engineer, something like that, where like he can take what he loves and actually make money off of it, make a lot more money than his daddy.
Yeah.
And that's really all I care about. Do I care if he's playing on Friday nights or, no, I don't care if he is playing on Friday nights or Saturdays or even whatever. I just want to be happy. And that is what it is. Like, kids are different, and I think that's the big thing is I thought that my kids were going to be a lot more like me, and they're not. They're much more like their mama, which is probably a good thing.
I was going to say, yeah, that's not for those of us that have known you for a long time. Not so sure that's a bad thing.
Nick Hathcock, you're still watching. You can chime in and say that. Tell us if it's better that my kids are like their mama instead of me. But I'm sure I know your answer.
Well, he said, "Don't feel bad. My son isn't into sports either. He just loves being around other kids." Yeah. That's, and I think all of our kids are all at that space right now.
And Nick's a lot like me. I mean, he was a college football player too. We played together in college. We're both athletic people, and Nick is one of the hardest working people I know. I will say that out loud and in front of everybody. One of the hardest working people I've ever met is Nick Hathcock. But I do think a lot of things came natural for him too. I mean, he's an athletic person, and he's naturally just a strong guy. So football came a little bit more naturally to Nick than others. But there you go again. Like, and Tiffany, his wife, played softball in high school. Like, they're athletes. That doesn't mean your kids are going to be athletes. You may be smart. That doesn't mean your kids are going to be smart. Like, your kids are going to be your kids, and you've got to, you got to help them through whatever they find themselves in.
That's right. Yeah, my hope is just that my kids don't find themselves in the lack of studiousness that I did. So they will take after their mom in that regard and be much better students.
Susanna a good student?
Oh yeah, man, she's a rock star student. Absolutely. So
good for her.
Oh, absolutely, of course. All right, before we go to another break and get into some other stuff, Kyle, today is World Mental Health Day. And as I feel like we've talked about this on the show before, but just kind of want to rehash because that's today, like, this whole like stigma around dads and men's, and we can't, kind of talk about the things that we're going through or feeling about and all that kind of stuff. And just thinking about like, it's all right to understand and to acknowledge, like, man, sometimes we need a day or a week or a month or whatever to unplug ourselves. And like, just for example, like last night, I had some friends in the neighborhood, some guys that were like, hey, we all just want to get together and do like a fire pit and watch the football game, and few of them smoked a cigar and like just hang out. And I mentioned something to Suzanne. She's like, yeah, absolutely, go do that, because you need that. We've got to have those kind of breaks from it all. And so just wanted to highlight that today and just, let the dads know out there that are listening, like, hey, we get it. Kyle and I go through the same things that every single one of you are going through. And it's all right to say, man, I'm struggling with this, or I need some help with this, or I need some prayers for this, or I'm going through this, or, whatever. And I think that's an important thing for us to hear each other say, and then to acknowledge from each other as well.
Yeah, and I'll say this to add on. Never, ever be too proud to just go talk about it with somebody.
Sure.
It's very easy to look up and go, well, I don't really want to, therapy. Don't be proud to go to therapy. I was for a long time. I'm now, 2.5 years almost into therapy. And I still see my therapist once a week, every Thursday, 4:00. That I know where I'm going to be. It is some of the most important talks I've ever had in my life is with that man for an hour a week. And all I'm saying is, don't be too proud to go talk to somebody. If you need help, go find that help. It is, your mental health is more important than anything else.
Yeah. Well, even if you don't feel like it's like help that's needed, I mean, I think it's okay for guys and dads to just acknowledge, like, sometimes you just need a break, and I feel like, I think that women for the most part are okay acknowledging that. And I think, I know I try to make sure that we acknowledge that around our houses. Sometimes mom needs a break and wife needs a break. And I think it's perfectly acceptable for us to say, like, I love my family and I want to be around them as much as possible, but I also need those moments to myself or with other men and other guys, just to watch a football game and have a drink and sit out by a fire and not have to think about anything that's even remotely serious at that point in time.
Yeah, I think. I mean, me and you had that a month ago, maybe. where we went and it was after Emma's birthday party. We went and ate pizza and watched some ball games.
Spent 5 hours at a bar watching football. That's right.
We spent 5 hours.
It was close. Yeah, we got there like right after 5 and left a little after 10. Man.
Okay, so we were there for a while.
Long time. Hope you tipped that guy good.
Oh, was I supposed to tip? I thought you were leaving the tip.
Oh well, sorry, buddy.
No, it's absolutely needed, and again, just if you're listening, don't be too proud to ask for help. Don't be too proud to take a step back and go, look, I can't handle all of this. And I think as guys, we tend to do that. We just say we keep adding it on, and eventually you're going to break. Eventually, It's going to be too much, and you just got to find a way to step away.
That you do. Absolutely. I thought that was an important thing for us to talk about for sure. So, all right, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we got a food bracket to finish up, and we got some picks. We will be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Coming up next week. Well, actually, there is not going to be a next week. We are not going to have a show next week. So Sunday, October 17th, there will not be an episode 85 of Dad's Watching Sports, but we will come back to you on the 24th. That's right. We'll have a special guest join us to talk all things going on in the sports world, as well as dad or mom life. We'll see you on the 24th. Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all take care. We're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper, Kyle Castles. As you just heard, we will not have a show next week. I'm going to be out of town for the majority of the weekend, so just will not have a show, but we'll be back the following week. So while we're out next week, go into our library, subscribe to the show, go into the library show. We've got, at that point in time, we'll have 84 shows, 83 others than this one. Go back in and find some good ones. We had the wives on Mother's Day 2 years in a row. We've done Kyle's vasectomy. We've done the cereal bracket. We've done the holiday songs bracket. We've had
sports movie bracket. That was a good one.
Sports movie bracket. We've had Clark Kellogg. We've had Peter Burns from SEC Network. We've had Cole Kubelik from the SEC. Yep. Yeah, so all kinds of great shows out there. We've got 83 episodes in addition to this one. So next week, go in, find one, shoot us some information on our Facebook or Twitter of which maybe was one of your favorite episodes. We would love to hear from you during that time. Well, Kyle, we were talking about World Mental Health Day, and what's good for my mental health is some good food. So let's get into the sports tailgate food bracket. So we're getting down to the final four here with these picks, Kyle. We've got the 5 seed breakfast casserole against the 2 seed chips and cheese dip. What you got, breakfast casserole or chips and cheese dip, Kyle?
Again, this one's running into when's the tailgate, right? Like if I got 11:30 kickoff, I say 11:30. That's showing my age. You remember the
Jefferson Pilot?
Pilot 11:30 kickoffs.
Yes, sir.
That was definitely. That's definitely the one in my head, but breakfast casserole, obviously, for that one. But any other time, it's chips and cheese dip. And quite frankly, I can't promise you there's not going to be chips and Rotel at that tailgate for the 11:30 game. So I know it's kind of chalk, but I'm going to go with TJ and Nick and give me chips and dip.
I'm going chips and dip as well. I think that's the easy choice there. I love a good breakfast casserole, but man, I don't care if it's the white Mexican cheese dip or Rotel or queso. I mean, cheese dip is just cheese dip. So we are moving cheese dip on to the final four, where it will face the winner of Pigs in a Blanket, the number 1 overall seed in that region, against the 2 seed. So we went chalk in this region, Chili. So we've got Pigs in a Blanket and Chili. Kyle, I'm going to vote first. And while Pigs in a Blanket are delicious, I just think nothing screams tailgate college football like a good bowl of chili. I'm going chili. What do you got?
We get down to this point, they're all good. And I had to make my case for breakfast casserole and cheese dip. And why I picked cheese dip was because it was more versatile.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
I'm not going to have breakfast casserole after, that early kick. So I'm looking at versatility here, right? And you got chili, and I get it. Chili is a staple. I have a 3-bean chili that I love to make. It all works out well for me. Here's the problem. I don't care if it's that first game late August or it's the last game in October. Pigs in the blanket work. So give me the versatile pigs in a blanket over chili.
All right, so we're tied at 1, Kyle. That means we got to go to the vote. And because the Aggies win over the weekend, we're going to get TJ's vote. And TJ votes for chili. So chili is moving on where it will face cheese dip. I tell you what, Kyle, that's a tough matchup, chili and cheese dip going on in the Final Four. But have you ever put cheese dip on your chili?
Yes. And when it's
now
done right,
is a game changer.
Yes, it is. But
that is a game changer.
TJ, I understand that y'all don't put beans in your chili down in Texas. But look, my 3-bean chili, black beans, pintos, or black beans, chili beans, and pintos, or kidneys. Black beans, chili beans, or I guess are pintos. They're similar, right? And kidney beans, you can't beat my chili, man. It's so good.
I just don't think you can beat any kind of chili. Like I love a good like white chili where you take like chicken and the white beans.
with the green chilies in it, right?
With some Rotel. Oh yeah, the Rotel and green. Oh man, that's
okay.
That right there with some hot sauce on it.
But you're a Kentucky guy. That's real close to Ohio. What about that Cincinnati chili on the spaghetti?
Don't give me no stinking noodles in my chili. That's gross. I don't need spaghetti noodles in my chili. That's disgusting. I've never understood that. I've got family who eats that stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't want any part of that. Like chili does not involve noodles. Get that out of here. All right, Kyle, we're going to the next region. We've got another 1-2 matchup, and this could be the toughest matchup of the bracket. We've got wings versus brats. Wings and brats, the 1 seed against the 2 seed. Who you got?
Dead air, right? So here's the thing. I'm looking at versatility at this point. What can I eat at any tailgate? To me, brats again feel more like a cold weather food, while wings I can eat any day of the year. Because of that, I'm going wings.
Going wings, okay. I appreciate your versatility. That's I haven't really thought of with this bracket of like, okay, what can I eat in the first games in August or September and the late games in November and it still be good. I like that. I like where you're going there. I would say, I love wings, but you can't just help get really messy when you're eating wings. And, you're in a rush. You're about to go to the game. You don't have time to really clean up after. Whereas a brat, man, you can walk and eat a brat on the way to the game, finish it up, and you're just good to go.
Yeah.
And so I'm going brats for a tie. So we're going to the vote, Kyle, and let's see what we got here. Well, things are not going to bode well for my brats because both Nick and TJ vote wings. Yep. So wings are moving on to the Final Four.
Here's what I'll say. I get that wings can be really messy, but not all. A good wing doesn't have to have a ton of sauce on it. You can just smoke some wings, and if they're seasoned right, you don't need anything else. You can grill some wings, and again, if they're done right, you don't need a sauce. So again, that versatility in the way the wing can be done.
I love it. That's awesome. All right, Kyle, here's our last matchup. So the winner will face wings in the Final Four, and this is a doozy as well. We've got the 4 seed, which was vastly underseeded, chicken tenders, against the 6 seed, also underseeded, pulled pork. Chicken tenders and pulled pork. Kyle, I will go first. To me, this is no contest. I've told you this from the get-go. Chicken tenders was my number 1 all along. I'm going chicken tenders. You get any kind of dip. I don't care if it's ranch. I don't care if it's honey mustard, ketchup, barbecue sauce, ranch. I already said ranch, blue cheese, any kind of dipping sauce to go along with them. Give me chicken tenders. That's the way to go.
So are these tenders from Publix?
Is there any better tender out there, Kyle?
I don't know if there's a better tender than Publix.
And especially if you can pair those tenders with the mango habanero dipping
Yes.
sauce.
You actually put me onto that because you hit me up. You're like, "Have you had the mango habanero sauce?"
Oh man, it's I had that this week or on Friday maybe and tweeted it's the goat of all dipping sauces.
I'll just talk about chicken tenders.
Yeah, you're in.
I'm not actually.
Oh, come on.
It's
Get
still
outta here.
pulled pork. When you're talking about, look, here's the way this works. If it's chicken tenders, somebody went to Publix or Chick-fil-A or wherever, right? Raising Cane's. I don't know where you got your chicken tenders, but you went and you got your chicken tenders, right?
Raising Cane's.
Oh, see,
Very
I know
nice.
some stuff. You went and you got your chicken tenders. You bring them to the tailgate. By the time you get them there, they've been sitting in something that's holding the heat in, but that causes condensation. They get soggy. They're cold. Don't give me any of that. Give me a freshly smoked butt. Pull that sucker. Let's put some barbecue sauce on it. Let me put some coleslaw on top of it with a little bit of a pickle. Put that between a bun, and your fat man's happy. Give me pulled pork, and I know I'm right because I can already see the comments. let go.
Oh, this is such a tragedy. Well, first off, if you're doing it right, if you're tailgating right, you bring the air fryer with you. So that way, if you've got a little condensation and they get a little mushy, you just pop them in there, you heat them up, they crisp up, and they're good to go. And you know dang well, Kyle, that Publix chicken tender is better than any pulled pork you're going to pull out of there.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Come on now.
No.
Get out of here
We're
with that mess.
we're talking Publix. We're talking about Publix chicken tender or Jim Beam barbecue pulled pork. Yeah, you weren't ready for me to pull out that Jim Beam.
Jim Beam. Get out of here. So Nick says pulled pork on nachos, and that's pulled pork is very good on nachos, but nachos is a whole different dish. This is pulled pork standalone, so I don't count that vote.
Okay,
but
let's go with TJ.
But I will count TJ's vote. Being from Texas, I have to go pulled pork. So TJ, once again, your Aggies got the win. TJ gets the win, and pulled pork, and what is just an absolute tragedy, knocks off chicken tenders to go on to the Final Four. So Kyle, our Final Four is set.
Your tenders are just like your cats; they can only get to the Elite Eight.
Oh, please, yeah. They can only get to the Elite Eight more than anybody else in the history of the college basketball is what it is. So our Final Four set, Kyle. I'm very excited about this. We've got kind of the running matchup and the main course matchup. So we've got cheese dip against chili, wings against pulled pork for the title. And we may or may not finish that in the next show. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But I'm excited.
Hey, we're going to do whatever you want to do, man. I'm just a talent. I show up. I talk. People like me.
You do good. You do good, Kyle. You do good. Well, you also did good last week, Kyle. You and I both did. We only lost one game in our picks. I think we went 3-1. So very quickly, here's our picks for the week. We've got App State at Louisiana. I'm going App State. Who you got?
I really want to go to Louisiana because I like Billy Napier, but something tells me I better go App State. So let's go App State.
All right. Number 3, Cincinnati is hosting the Fighting Gus Malzahn's of UCF. Can Gus and company pull off an upset in Cincy?
Could they? Yes. Are they? No. Give me Cincy.
I'll go Cincy as well. I would love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. All right, Kyle, you already alluded to this earlier, but over under 85, the spread's at 85.5.
Oh, I didn't realize it was going to be that high.
85.5 for Ole Miss and Tennessee.
Wow.
I'll go first. I'm taking the over because one, I think their offenses are that good, and I don't think their defenses are good at all. So I'm taking the over. I was actually thinking it'd be closer to 90, but
85.5. That is 44 points apiece. No, 42.5 points apiece. I feel like somebody's got to hit 50 in that game. I'm going to take the under. I really do. I think I'm going to take the under.
I was taking the under. All right, last game. We've already kind of a little talked about it, but I want to get you on record. You got the Cats heading into Georgia. We got Kyle.
Give me the Dogs.
I'll take the Dogs.
I'll pull for your Cats, but give me the Dogs.
Look, Al, not only is it Kentucky against the world, it's Kentucky against you as well. It's Kentucky against Georgia. Watch out for the Cats. If I had the headgear, I'd put it on right now. Cats taking down the Bulldogs to remain undefeated. I will go Big Blue because I have to. Cats get the W. It'll happen.
We'll see.
We'll see you next week. Or actually, 2 weeks. Dad's
2
Watching
weeks.
Sports.